Today, we're diving into a really fascinating book called Decoding the Human Manual, and we're using it to tackle, well, maybe the biggest question there is. And that question is, who are you? Now, really, it feels like such a simple question, doesn't it? Of course you know who you are. There's a single, stable you in there calling the shots. But what if I told you that entire feeling, that deep core sense of I, is just the brain's most beautiful and elaborate trick? And that right there, that's the central kind of mind-blowing idea of this book. Your sense of self isn't some solid thing you find or have. It's a story your brain is constantly telling itself every second of every day, just to make sense of the world. Okay, so before we can deconstruct that story of you, we first have to understand how our brain even builds our reality to begin with. What are the fundamental forces that cook up the world we all experience? Well, the book calls them the four architects of reality. Think of it like layers, building from the ground up. At the very bottom, you've got physics, the bizarre quantum rules that govern everything. On top of that, evolution uses DNA to build life. Then you have neuroscience, which explains how our brain interprets all that information. And finally, the top layer is psychology, all the cultural and social stories we absorb that shape who we think we are. And here is where it gets really wild. The book makes it clear that your brain is not a passive camera just recording the world. It's a prediction machine. It's constantly guessing what's out there based on everything it's learned before, and then it just tweaks the prediction when new information comes in. So let that sink in. What you see and hear and feel isn't objective reality. It's just your brain's best guess. So if our reality is a construction, a best guess, then what about the you at the center of it all? This is where that storyteller in your skull gets really, really creative. It uses three powerful illusions to keep that feeling of a solid you going. Okay, first up, the illusion of continuity. You feel like the same person who went to bed last night, right? Of course you do, but here's the thing. Your memory is not a video recording. Every single time you remember something, your brain rebuilds that memory from scratch, from scattered fragments. So that seamless story of you from yesterday to today, it's just your brain acting like a film editor, stitching together the pieces to make a coherent movie. All right, if that one didn't get you, the second illusion is even more startling. This idea that you're a single, unified self. We all feel like there's a CEO in our head, a little commander making decisions. But some incredible research, especially from split brain studies, shows something totally different is going on. Okay, check this out. This experiment is just incredible. The patient's right brain, which controls the left hand, sees a snow scene, so the left hand points to a shovel. Makes sense. The left brain, controlling the right hand, sees a chicken claw, so the right hand points to a chicken. Still with me? Here's the crazy part. When you ask the person, why is your left hand pointing to a shovel? The left brain, which never saw the snow, has no clue. So what does it do? It makes up a story on the spot. The shovel is to clean out the chicken coop. It invents a totally plausible reason to explain an action it didn't even start. This shows us the left brain is an interpreter, a storyteller just trying to make sense of it all. And this leads us directly to the third and maybe the most unsettling illusion of all, free will. We all have this powerful feeling. I consciously decide to do things. But the neuroscience? Well, it tells a very different story. It suggests the feeling of deciding is actually one of the last things to happen in the chain of events. This famous experiment by Benjamin Libet laid it all out. He timed three things. First, he saw unconscious brain activity, this readiness potential, building up. Then, after that, the person would report, okay, I've decided to move my wrist now. And then finally, the wrist would move. The shocking part? The brain was getting ready to act a full half second before the person felt like they had made a choice. That feeling of deciding wasn't the cause. It was more like an announcement that the action was already underway. So I know what you might be thinking. If the self, continuity, and free will are all just illusions, isn't that kind of depressing? But hold on. The book argues that this is the opposite of depressing. Understanding this is actually incredibly empowering. Seeing through the illusion isn't about losing something. It's about gaining true freedom. And just look at the practical benefits this brings. When you stop having to defend this rigid, fragile idea of me all the time, you become way less emotionally reactive. Failure isn't some deep personal indictment anymore. It's just feedback. This frees you up from perfectionism, unlocks your creativity, and lets you tap into those amazing flow states. You can become more resilient, more authentic, and honestly, a whole lot more peaceful. And we've all felt that flow state, right? When you're an athlete in the zone, or a musician lost in a song, or a coder just completely absorbed. That little voice in your head, the inner critic, it just goes quiet. Time seems to disappear. There's no you doing the thing anymore. There's just the doing itself. That's a taste of what it's like to let that illusion of the self just dissolve.
So if you're not the constant chatter, not the storyteller in your skull, then what's left? The book has this really beautiful way of putting it. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. That quiet, still, observant space that's just watching the story unfold, that's where the real freedom is.
So you see, realizing the self as a story isn't the end of anything. It's actually the starting line. It's the beginning of a whole new journey, a journey of unlearning all the stories and conditioning you've picked up so you can discover what's been underneath it all along. Which leaves us with one final and really powerful thought. If your sense of self is just a story that your brain has constructed, well, that means the story can be changed. You can pick up the pen and become the author of a new one. Now, we've really just scratched the surface today. If any of this has sparked your curiosity and you're ready to go way deeper into the science and the philosophy behind all this, the entire journey continues in the book, Decoding the Human Manual. It's an incredible guide for this exploration. Thanks for diving in with me.